All right, folks, here we go again. We are starting on chapter 72 of the book of Enoch. Chapter 72. Okay? I'm going to throw these glasses on again because I'm not going to strain my eyes and squint or read it wrong. Why was this taken out? I think what we're reading, it shows us clearly why it was taken out. We'll probably do a little recap after it's all said and done. But for right now, let's get started. The book of the courses of the luminaries. Wow, this is a good one here. The book of the courses of the luminaries of heaven, the relationships of each, according to their name, the origin, the months, the dominion, and the season, which Uriel, the holy angel who was with me, who is their guide, showed me. And he showed me all their laws, regulations, exactly as they are, and how it is with each of the years of the word, and to eternity, until the new creation is accomplished, which endures until eternity. And this is the first law of the luminaries. The luminary, the sun, which is the Meshe in Hebrew, has its rising in the eastern doors of heaven and its setting in the western doors of heaven. We can see that, right? Comes in the east, sets in the west. And I saw 6 doors in which the sun rises, and 6 doors in which the sun sets, and the moon rises and sets in these doors. And the leaders of the stars, those whom they lead, 6 in the east and 6 in the west, and all the following each other accurately corresponding order. There were also many windows to the right and to the left of these doors. And first there goes out the great luminary, named the sun, and his sphere or orbit disk is like the sphere, orbit, or disk of heaven, and he is quite filled with illuminating and heating fire. The chariot on which he ascends, the wind drives, and the sun goes down from heaven and returns through the north in order to reach the east, and is also guided so that he comes to the appropriate door and shines in the face of heaven. In this way he rises in the first month in the great door, which is the fourth. And in that fourth door from which the sun rises in the first month are 12 windows, from which proceed a flame when they are opened in their season. When the sun rises in heaven, he comes out through the fourth door, 30 mornings in succession, and sets accurately in the fourth door of the west of heaven. And during this period, the day becomes daily longer, and nights grow shorter to the 13th morning. On that day, the day is longer than the night by a ninth part, and the day amounts exactly to 10 parts, and the night to 8 parts. And the sun rises from that fourth door and sets in the fourth, and returns to the fifth door of the east 30 mornings, and rises from it and sets in the fifth door. And then the day becomes longer by 2 parts, and the amounts 11 parts. And the night becomes shorter, and the amounts to 7 parts. And it returns to the east and enters into the sixth door, and rises and sets in the sixth door, 1 and 30 mornings on the count of its sign. On that day, the day becomes longer than the night, and the night becomes double the night, and the day becomes 12 parts, and the night is shortened and becomes 6 parts. Right? And the sun mounts up to make the day shorter and the night longer. And the sun returns to the east and enters to the sixth door and rises from it and sets 30 mornings. And when 30 mornings are accomplished, the day decreases by exactly 1 part and becomes 11 parts, and the night 7. And the sun goes out from that sixth door in the west and goes to the east and rises in the fifth door to 30 mornings, and sets in the west again in the fifth western door. On that day, the day decreases by 2 parts and amounts 10 parts, and the night to 8 parts. And the sun goes out from the fifth door and sets in the fifth door of the west, and rises in the fourth door from 1 and 30 mornings on the account of its sign, and sets in the west. And on that day, the day becomes equal with the night in length, and the night amounts to 9 parts, and the day to 9 parts. And the sun rises from that door and sets in the west and returns to the east and rises 30 mornings in the third door and sets in the west in the third door. Why does all this matter? Because we know what we're looking at. Instead of some pharaoh or some godlike so-called person coming and telling us what happens and you sacrifice your kids and babies to me. No, we can look right here and see we know what's going on. And on that day, the night becomes longer than the day, and night becomes longer than night, and day shorter than day until the 13th morning. On the night amounts exactly to 10 parts, and the day to 8 parts. And the sun rises from the third door and sets in the third door in the west and returns to the east. And for 30 mornings rises the second door in the east, and in the like manner sets in the second door in the west of heaven. And on that day the night amounts to 11 parts, on the day to 7 parts. And the sun rises on that day from the second door and sets on the west in the second door, and returns to the east into the first door for 31 mornings, and sets in the first door in the west of heaven. So we have a calendar right here. 30 days, 30 days, 31 days, right? So we can see what's going on and how this works. And on that day, the night becomes longer and amounts to the double of the day, and the night amounts exactly to 12 parts, and the day to 6. A little note here. The day is divided into 18 sections of 90 minutes each, right? They had the town criers and such even in the time of Yeshua. And the sun is traversed in the divisions of his orbits and turns again on those divisions of his orbit and enters the door 30 mornings and sets also in the west opposite to it. And on that night has the night decreased in length by a 9th part, and the night has become 11 parts, and the day 7 parts. And the sun has returned and entered into the second door in the east, and returns on those divisions of his orbit for 30 mornings, rising and setting. And on that day the night decreases in length, and the night amounts to 10 parts, and the day to 8. And on that day the sun rises from the door and sets in the west and returns to the east, and rises in the third door for 31 mornings, and sets in the west of heaven. On that day the night decreases in amounts of 9 parts, and on that day to 9 parts. And the night is equal to the day, and the year is exactly to its days, 364. And the length of the day and the length of the night, and the shortness of the day and the night arise through the course of the sun. These distinctions are separated. So it comes that it is course between daily longer and its course nightly shorter. And this is the law in the course of the great luminary, which is named the sun, or the Meshe in its Hebrew tongue. And his return as often as he returns 60 times, and rises forever and ever. And that which rises is the great luminary, and is so named according to its appearance, according to Yahweh has commanded. And he rises so, he sets and decreases not, and rests not, but runs day and night, and his light is 7-fold brighter than that of the moon, or the Yarek in its native Hebrew tongue. But in regard to size, they are both equal. Yeah, why would that be taken out? I wonder why. And after this law, I saw another law dealing with the smaller luminary, which is named the moon, or the Yarek. Yarek in Hebrew tongue. And her orbit is like the spear, the orbit disk of heaven, and her chariot in which she rides is driven by the wind, and light is given to her in measurement. And her rising and setting change every month, and her days are like the days of the sun. And when her light is uniformly, completely full, it amounts to the 7th part of the light of the sun. So it's 7th part of the light of the sun when it's completely full. And thus she rises, in her first place is in the east, comes out of the 13th morning on the day that she becomes visible, and constitutes for you the first phase of the moon on the 13th day, together with the sun in the door where the sun rises. And the one half of her goes out by a seventh part, and her whole disk is empty without light. And with exception of 1/7 part of it, the 14th part of her light. And when she receives 1/7 part of half of her light amounts to 1/7 part and her half thereof. And she sets with the sun, and when the sun rises with the moon, rises with him, and receives the half part of light. And in that night, in the beginning of her morning, in the beginning of the lunar day, the moon sets with the sun, and is invisible that night with the 14 parts and the half of one of them. And she rises on that day with exactly a seventh part, and comes out and recedes from the rising of the sun. And in her remaining days she becomes bright in the remaining 13 parts. And I saw another course, a law for her, and how according to the law she performs her monthly revolution. And all these Uriel, the holy angel, who is the leader of them all. So who's in charge of them? Uriel, right? Showed me, and their positions, and I wrote down their positions as he showed me to them, and I wrote down their months as they were, and he appeared in their lights until 15 days were accomplished. In single seventh part she accomplishes all her light in the east, and in single 7 parts accomplishes all her darkness in the west. And in certain months she alters her settings, and in certain months she pursues her own particular course. In 2 months the moon sets with the sun in those 2 middle doors, the third and the fourth. She goes out for 7 days and turns about and returns again through the door where the sun rises, and all her light is full. And she recedes from the sun, and in 8 days enters the 6th door from which the sun goes out. And when the sun goes out from the 4th door, she goes out 7 days until she goes out from the 5th and turns back again. In 7 days into the 4th door and accomplishes all her light. And she recedes and enters into the 1st door 8 days. Why does this all matter? Well, because if we're going to keep a calendar and do what it says, we probably need to learn what this is talking about. And she returns again in 7 days into the 4th door from which the sun goes out. Thus I saw their positions, how the moon rose and the sun set in those days. And if 5 years are added together, the sun has an excess of 30 days, and all the days which accurate to one of those 5 years, when they are full, amount to 364 days. And an excess of sun and the stars amount to 60 days in 5 years, 6 days every year to come, 30 days, and the moon falls behind the sun and stars to the number of 30 days. And the sun and the stars bring all the years exactly, that they do not advance or delay their position by a single day to eternity, but complete the years with perfect justice in 364 days. In 3 years there are 1,092 days, and in 5 years there is 1,820 days, so that the 8 years there are 2,912 days. For the moon alone, the days amount in 3 years to 1,062 days, and in 5 years she falls 50 days behind to the sum of 1,770. There is 5 to be added, 1,062 days. And in the 5 years there are 1,770 days, so that for the moon the days 6 in 8 years amount to 21,832 days. For in 8 years she falls behind the amount of 80 days. All the days she falls behind in 8 years are 80 days. And the year is accurately completed in conformity with their world stations and the stations of the sun, which rise from the doors through which the sun rises and sets 30 days. And the leaders of the heads of the 10,000 who are in charge of the whole creation over all stars, have also to do with the 4 days of the year, which are not counted in the yearly calendar, being not separated from their office according to the reckoning of the year, and these render service on the 4 days which are not counted in the reckoning of the year. And because of them, men go wrong in them. For those illuminating truly render service to the stations of the world, one in the first door, one in the third door of heaven, and one in the fourth door. And in the sixth door, and into exactness of the year is accomplished, though it separate 364 stations. For these signs in the times, in the years, and the days, the angel Uriel showed me, whom Yahweh of glory has set forever over all the luminaries of heaven and in the world, and that they should rule on the face of heaven and be seen on the earth, to be leaders for the day, via the sun, and the light, via the moon, and the stars, and all the ministering creatures which make their revelation in all the chariots of heaven. In like manner 12 doors Uriel showed me, open in the sphere, the disk of the sun's chariot in heaven, though which the rays of the sun break out, and from them is warp diffused over the earth, when they are opened at their appointed seasons, and their openings for the wind and the spirit of dew, that when they are opened stand open in heaven at the ends of the earth. As for the 12 doors in heaven at the ends of the earth, out of which go out the sun, moon, stars, and all the works of heaven in the east and in the west, there are many windows open to the left and to the right of them. And one window, it is appointed season, produces warmth, corresponding to the doors from which the stars come out, as he commanded them, and in which they are set, corresponding to their number. And I saw chariots in heaven running in the world, having above the doors in which the stars never set. And one is larger than all the rest, and it is that makes its course through the entire world. At the ends of the earth I saw 12 doors open to all quarters of heaven, from which the winds go out and blow over the earth. 3 of them are open on the face of heaven, and 3 in the west, and 3 on the right of heaven, and 3 on the left. And the 3 first are those of the east, and the 3 of the north, and 3 after those are on the left, of the south, and the 3 of the west. Through 4 of these come winds of blessing and prosperity, peace. From those 8 hurtful winds come. When they are sent, they bring destruction on all the earth, and in water on it, and all who dwell on it, and on everything which is in the water and the land. And the first wind from those doors, called the east wind, comes out through the first door which is in the east, inclining towards the south from its desolation. Drought, heat, destruction come out. And through the second door in the middle comes what is fitting, right, correct, and there come rain and fruitfulness and prosperity and dew. And through the third door, which lies toward the north, comes cold and drought. And after these comes out of the south winds through 3 doors. Through the first door of them, inclining to the east, comes out a hot wind. And through the middle door next to it, there comes out fragrant smells and dew and rain and prosperity and health. And through the third door, which lies to the west, dew comes out, and also rain, locusts, and desolation. And from the 7th door in the east comes the north winds and dew, rain, locusts, and desolation. And from the center door come health and rain and dew and prosperity. And through the third door in the west come cloud and hoarfrost and snow and rain and dew and locusts. And after these came the 4th west winds. Through the first door adjoining the north come out dew, hoarfrost, cold, and snow and frost. And from the center door come out dew and rain, prosperity and blessing. And through the last door which adjoins the south come drought, desolation, burning, and destruction. And the 12 doors of the 4 quarters of heaven are therewith completed. And all their laws, and all their plagues, and all their benefactions have I shown to you, my son Methuselah. Wow. Chapter 77. And the 1st quarter is called the east, because it is the first, and the second the south, because it is the Most High will descend there. From there he will, who is blessed forever, descend. And the west quarter is named diminished, because there are all luminaries of the heaven wane and go down. And the 4th quarter, named north, is divided into 3 parts. The first of them is for dwelling of men. The second contains seas of water, and the abyss, the deep, and the forest, and the rivers, and darkness, and clouds. And the 3rd part contains the garden of righteousness. I saw 7 high mountains, higher than all the mountains which are on the earth. And from here comes hoar frost, and days and seasons and years pass away. I saw 7 rivers on the earth, larger than all the rivers. One of them, coming from the west, pours its waters into the great sea. And these 2 come from the north to the sea, and pour their waters into the Euphratean Sea in the east. Euphratean Sea. Euphratean. I want to look that one up. And the remaining 4 come out of the sea of the north to their own sea, 2 of them to the Iranian Sea, and 2 into the great sea. And some say they discharge themselves there into the desert. I saw 7 great islands in the sea, and in the mainland 2 mainland, and 5 in the great sea. And in the names of the sun are the following: first Argeres, and the second Thomas. Argeres, Thomas. And the moon has 4 names. The first is Ashana, the second Ibala, the third Benenze, and the 4th Ere. These are the 2 great luminaries. Their spears are like the spear, the disk of heaven, and the size of the spears, the disk is both alike. In the spear, the disk of the sun, there are 7 portions of light which are added to it, more than to the moon. In its fixed measurements, it is transferred until the 7th portion of the sun is exhausted. And they set and enter the doors of the west, and make the revolution by the north, and come out through the eastern doors of the face of heaven. And when the moon rises, 1/4 part appears in heaven, and the 14th day the moon's light becomes full. And the 15th part of light are transferred into her until the 15th day, where her light is full, according to the sign of the year, and she becomes 15 parts. And the moon grows by an additional 14 parts. And as the moon's waning decreases the first day to 14 parts on her light, the second to 13 parts of light, and the third to 12, and the 4th to 11, the 5th to 10, on the 6th to 9, on the 7th to 8, on the 8th to 7, and on the 9th to 6, and on the 10th to 5, and on the 11th to 4, and on the 12th to 3, on the 13th to 2, on the 14th to half of a seventh, and all her remaining light disappears wholly on the 15th. And in certain months, the month has 29 days and 28. And Uriel showed me another law, when light is transferred to the moon, and which side is transferred to her. During all the period during which the moon is growing in her light, she is transferred to herself. When opposite to the sun, during the 14 days of her light is full in heaven, and when she is ablaze throughout, her light is full in heaven. And on the first day she is called the new moon, for on that day the light rises on her. She becomes a full moon exactly on the day when the sun sets in the west. And from the east she rises at night, and the moon shines the whole night through until the sun rises over against her, and the moon is seen over against the sun. On that side where the light of the moon comes out, there again she wanes until the light vanishes and all the days of the month are at an end, and her sphere, her disk, is empty and void of light. And 3 months she makes of 30 days. At her time she makes 3 months of 29 days each, and then she accomplishes her waning in the first period of time, and in the first door for 177 days. And in the time of her going out, she appears for 3 months consistently of 30 days each, and she appears for 3 months consisting of 29 each. By night, she looks like a man for 21 days each time, and by day, she appears like heaven, and there is nothing else in her save her light. We'll stop there. 79. Chapter 79. So obviously we need to go over these and see if our calendars match this up, right? If our calendars match up to this, then we know what's going on. Well, we got a couple more minutes. How much is 79? We can go to 80 maybe if we can hurry here. What you think? But that obviously shows us a calendar, and not the calendar that we see, but a calendar of biblical, what it says. Let's do one more. Chapter 79. And now, my son Methuselah, I have shown you everything. So Methuselah learned all this. And the law of all the stars of heaven is complete. And he showed me all the laws of these for every day, and for every season, and for every rule, and for every year, and for its going out, for the order prescribed to it, month, and every week. And the waning of the moon of the Yarek, which takes place in the sixth door. For in this sixth door her light is accomplished. And after that there is the beginning of the waning, and the waning which takes place in the first door in its season until the 177 days are accomplished, calculated according to the weeks, 25 weeks and 2 days. She falls behind the sun and the order of the stars exactly 5 days in the course of one period. And when this place which you see has been traversed, such is the picture and the sketch of every luminary which Uriel, the archangel, who is their leader, showed to me. There it is, right? We have a calendar that we can follow, but obviously, just like a lot of other things, we need to follow for quite a bit to make sure this matches up. We got 28, 29, 30 days, 177 days, so on and so forth. But this is a calendar that has been shown, and Methuselah had. Where did it get lost? How did it get lost? Why is this, again, not in your Bible? The Geneva Bible actually has a calendar in the beginning of it. Some of these Bibles actually show these calendars, which is amazing, because then we wouldn't have the whole calendar debate. There would be no argument. We could say, look, this is what it says, so be it. Till next time, may Yahweh bless you. May His kindness shine upon you. May He grant you shalom. Thank you for watching. Shalom, shalom. Be blessed. The Book of Enoch.